Alrighty, hello everyone. My name is Kit, and today I will be creating or doing a very ad hoc video where I implement a Korge UI element for my project here. So this is my mock. So for context, this is basically like a map viewer for viewing various different testing maps. These testing maps I call Goldens. So this is going to be testing maps viewer. And the part that I'm going to be implementing is basically one of these map entries here. So it's going to basically just be a box. At the top here is going to have the text. And then inside of this little data section will be the map itself. So this is what I will be implementing. So let's go ahead and just get started. Alright, so I will just start off with a scene that I've already created. This is called the Golden's viewer scene. So if I run it right now, it won't actually show anything. So, actually, it shows this solid rectangle that I've built up right now, but I'll just erase it for now so that we can just start over. So now if I run it, it shouldn't show anything. Right, so it's just an empty scene that we can start working with. So to start off by building this map entry, we're just going to create some rectangles to basically give us an idea of how things will be laid out. So for this rectangle, I'm just going to give it a width and height of 200 by 200. And this will be the size of the actual map entry itself. Alright, so this dot solid rect, and then we give it a width and a height. And then for color, let's do gray, dark gray. Alright, and if we run it, cool, we see that we have our little gray window here. So this will be basically the entire, the size of the entire grid itself, UI grid. So let's call this the grid background. Alright, and now I'm just going to create a bunch of other rectangles to see how I'm going to lay out this text and also the map data. So here I'll create another one, solid rect. Then for this, it will have the same width. Then for height, we can do 50. Let's try that out. And then grid text section. Okay, so this will be at the same position, 0, 0. Okay, so that is actually quite big. So let's just do 25, and then run it. Okay, that looks not that bad. Cool. Then next we can just draw in some text here. So text. And then let's see. We're going to be taking these golden files here. So let's go ahead and take this, shuffle. Then this will be the golden maps VFS files. Then I'll do a bit of refactoring here so I could just get one of the VFS files. So for the text, let's just start off with something like hello world. And then the text size, I'm not really sure what's going to be the best text size to use. So let's just start off with 25, the same as the height that we have here. Okay, let's just run it and see what it looks like. Okay, so we see that hello world is being drawn and it has a sort of white color. So let's change it to colors.black instead. Alright, okay, that looks pretty good. So hello world, And then, cool. All right, so next we want to basically draw a map section here. So there's going to be a section where we store in the map data. So to calculate that, we should probably start giving some of these variables its own, or these constants its own variable name. So let's do val test text height section text section height. This is 25. Text section height. What is this? Oh, this needs to be a double, and then this only accepts int. So actually, let's do this and then 2 double. Okay, so next for the map itself, I actually created a UI element that is the map, the game map itself. So let's go ahead and do that. This is called the UI map box, right? So it takes in a game map, and then you can define the box width and height, which stores that game map. So for the game map, let's take in the first file here. Yeah, let's actually just take in some random map from the beginning. So we'll do golden map vfs file dot first. Then I have this extension function which converts that into a game map. So yeah, that's how we get the game map. Then for the box width, it's going to be the same width as our current grid or current entry. Then the box height should be whatever is left after we subtract the test section. So game map section height equals height minus text section height. So this will be here. All right, so this should be a double. Then the width should also be a double. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it and see what we get. Awesome. Okay, so we do get this map here, but you see that it's kind of overlapping this, and that's because it's not aligned correctly. So we have to align it. And I just noticed here that I used the wrong naming scheme. So there shouldn't be grid background. It should instead be, let's call this entry background. This is the entry text section. So, okay, now let's create the map. Let's store this into its own variable. And then we will align this. So align the top to the bottom of the text section. So entry text section. Awesome. Now that is actually looking very good. So just a note on the UI map box, what I've done here is that it's just basically a container which contains the map itself, and it tries to scale and center the map onto the little box that we define. So this is what this code is doing. So if you're interested, you can just pause and take a look at these different the code here. Just to note, I do this thing where I render the map itself to its own bitmap. So what you're seeing here is actually an image. It's actually a bitmap of the map itself. And the reason I did this is because I found out that if you have too many containers that contain other containers, then Korge gets extremely laggy. So an optimization that I've done is just to store the maps as an image, so that it doesn't render all these individual elements here in this map itself. So it is a bit of an optimization trick that I've done. Cool. So the next thing that I need to do is, right, for the entry text section, instead of doing hello world, we want to use the file name that we get here. So let's do game map file equals this. Then game map file. Okay, so and then the text here should be this. And let's do toString. Let's see what we get when we do toString. Okay, that is way too long. We just want the name of the file itself. So how do I do that? Base name, is that it? Perfect. Okay. So that is looking not bad. The J actually does go out of the box here a bit, but I think that is looking pretty good actually. So now that we have this element, what we can do is store it in its own like little UI component. So a UI component looks kind of like this. So in Korge, the way that it usually implements things is that it creates classes for these UI components, and then it adds this inline function so that you can just do like this dot solid rect to add the component that you created into the current parent components list of children. So you see, this is what it's doing. When you do this dot solid rect, what you're doing is you're constructing the component itself, and then you're adding this component to the parent's elements. So okay, so what we're just going to do now is refactor all of this into its own component. So the way that I usually do this is I create a UI, let's call this Golden's viewer entry. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so this will be a subclass of a container, and it will have an initialization function. So inside of this initialization function, we just basically move all of this inside here. So let's go ahead and do that. Move this, all of this inside like so. Okay, so there are a few things that we're missing here, like the golden map VFS file, but that's fine. So what I'm thinking about doing, just having this be a parameter, so we can have the golden map or the map file, VFS file, right? And this is what is going to use to get the data for this map entry here. And let's see, is there anything else we're missing? Oh yeah, we don't need first because we're giving the entry itself. And all right, that looks good. Okay, so now we want to follow the same pattern that Korge defines the container. So it uses this inline function like this. So I'm just going to copy it and modify it to be very similar to what we have here for our purposes. So this is going to be container.ui golden's viewer entry. Then for now, it doesn't really have any parameters except for the VFS file. So map file, VFS file. Okay, and then this will create the entry with that map file. And that looks pretty good. Okay, yeah, we don't need this callback. And yeah, okay, that's basically it. So now we can, if we go back here, we can do this dot UI Godin's viewer entry, and then pass in the first file that we see in our Godin Maps VFS file. So get that first. Oh yeah, I forgot to explain this, but the VFS files is basically just a bunch of JSON files that define various game maps. So I have them stored in my common test data section here. So for example, it's just JSON files that looks like this. Right, so it defines all of these different entities and their location inside of the map. Just an FYI. Okay, so now if we run this, then we should expect the same kind of structure that we have here. Great. And after creating this entry, we can just try moving it around, and everything should like move together. So if we do position 100 by 100, then you see here that the map itself moves 100 by 100 to this section here. So this is awesome. Now this component itself is reusable. So if we want, we can create UI Godin viewer entries anywhere, as long as we have a VFS file that represents a JSON map that we can use. Okay, so another thing that we can do is make the width and height customizable. So we can allow the user themselves to define the width and height. So to do that, let's just go ahead and create these variables. So width int, height int, and then we want this here to also have that. So width int, height int, then pass in this width and the height. Then make it so that instead of using these local parameters, it'll use the parameters that we pass in. Val width, wait, what? Override? Oh, I see. Okay, so since the container itself contains these width and height variables, I don't recommend reusing these variable names. Instead, let's do entry width, then entry height. Let's just avoid as much conflict as we can. So we'll rename this to entry width and entry height, and I'll just rename these to match. And then we don't need these local variables anymore. So great. Then now in our caller here, if we pass in something like 200 by 200, oh, a double, inferred type is double, but int was expected. Int, oh, okay, I guess I made it a double, so let's just make it a double, pass in double instead. Okay, so we have this text section that was wait, double. So the entry width is a double, text section has to be a double, so 2 double. All right, cool. Okay, that should fix it. Then for these, I need to give it a double. Okay, 200 by 200 there. So now if we run it, then the same. Oh shoot, what happened here? Wait. I messed something up. Entry width 2 double. 1 second. Okay, my apologies. Someone was calling me, so I had to stop the recording for a bit. So, okay, I found out my issue. I was passing in the width and the height of the container itself, not of these parameters here. So I have to pass in the correct parameters, and if we run it, it should now work. Right, 200 by 200, and let's see, if we want to change up the width here, let's go ahead and do that. Which one? So let's do 400 by 200. Awesome, that worked. You see that it resized with the width and height that we provided. So that's great. We can also change the height instead of the width. So 200 by 400. Let's see how that affects things. And yeah, you notice that it resized with what we provided it. Alrighty, so I will stop there. I hope this gives you a brief glimpse as to like how you can create your own UI elements in Korge. There are much more advanced ways that you can do this as well. I recommend taking a look at stuff like this.ui stack, horizontal stack. It follows the same pattern, but it does something. It's much more complicated. So it does some subclassing. So there's another abstract class that it uses to define this, and then there's a UI container. It does some more complicated stuff. There's also a bunch of just other various examples that you should definitely take a look at. Another good one is UI scrollable. This one is one of the very beefy examples here. So yeah, it creates a bunch of different classes to define various different things. Has a bunch of private parameters when setting up as well. So yeah, this can be much more complicated than what I have right now. Just FYI. But hopefully, yeah, this gives you a brief glimpse as to how to make a very simple UI element using Korge's existing style or convention. Hopefully this helps. Thanks for watching. Bye.